There are stories that drift away with the tide, brief, beautiful, and easily forgotten. And then there are those that linger, even after the waves have carried everything else back to sea. Kim Seon-ho and Shin Minata's story was one of those rare tides that never truly went out. It was calm, quiet, and unassuming on the surface, yet beneath, it pulsed with something deeper, something the ocean itself seemed to recognize. When hometown CHSHCHA first arrived, it was supposed to be a simple healing drama, set in a quaint coastal village named Gongjin. But simplicity is deceptive. What unfolded was more than television, it was a feeling, a memory dressed as fiction. Kim Seon-ho's Chief Hong and Shin Minata's Hae-jin didn't just fall in love, they restored belief in tenderness, in timing, in the kind of affection that doesn't need fireworks to be felt. There was something about the way they existed together, not performed, not forced. When she smiled at him by the sea, it wasn't the kind of smile built for the camera. It was the kind that happens when a person forgets they're being watched. When he looked at her, really looked, it was as though the horizon itself bent a little, making room for their story. The chemistry between them was the kind that even silence couldn't break. Their conversations often paused, lingered, and breathed. It wasn't about words, it was about presence. The rhythm of their scenes mirrored the sea behind them, constant yet unpredictable, gentle yet powerful. When they laughed together, the ocean seemed to echo. When they argued, the waves rose higher. The setting wasn't a backdrop, it was a witness. People say the sea remembers everything, the tears it has swallowed, the footsteps it has erased, the confessions whispered to it by those who couldn't speak aloud. And maybe that's why Gongjin still feels alive long after the drama ended. Every wave carries fragments of them, his easy smile, her shy glance, their laughter floating like sea foam over the surface of time. Behind the cameras, they shared that same quiet comfort. On set, Shin Minata often laughed between takes, brushing her hair away with that same gentle grace Hae-jin had. Kim Seon-ho, ever sincere, would listen intently when she spoke, sometimes too shy to meet her eyes directly. There were rumors, not of scandal, but of warmth. The kind that can't be staged. The kind that slips through professionalism and lingers in the pauses. It wasn't about grand gestures. It was about how natural everything felt. When the director called cut, neither rushed to leave the frame. They stayed a heartbeat longer, like the ocean hesitating before retreating from the shore. Fans noticed. They noticed the small things, the way his eyes softened when she laughed too hard, the way she unconsciously mirrored his movements, the way their energy never felt rehearsed. And when the final episode aired, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the sea had gone still for a moment, holding its breath, reluctant to let them go. Viewers around the world cried not because of the farewell, but because it felt too real. Because somewhere between fiction and life, the boundaries blurred. After filming wrapped, life carried them in different directions. Kim Seon-ho disappeared from the spotlight for a while, and fans worried the waves had finally taken everything. But when he returned, quieter, humbler, there was still that trace of Gongjin in his demeanor, the warmth of a man who once learned how to love without words. Shin Minata, steady and graceful, continued to glow in her own world, her laughter still carrying that same seaside softness. And yet, no matter what new roles they played, hometown CHSHA followed them not as a shadow, but as a melody the sea refused to stop singing. Every fan meeting, every interview, every nostalgic clip that resurfaces online, it feels like a tide returning. People still say their chemistry was too natural, too comfortable, too real to end. In the quiet corners of the internet, fans write, "The ocean misses them. They were never acting, they were remembering." Gongjin isn't a place, it's a feeling, and they're still part of it. There's something almost spiritual about it. When two people meet at the right emotional frequency, they create an energy that even time can't drown. Kim Seon-ho and Shin Minata's energy was like that, subtle but eternal. The kind of connection that doesn't demand attention but commands remembrance. Sometimes, people rewatch the drama not to see the story again, but to feel something they've been missing. The laughter by the seaside, the quiet comfort of two hearts finding peace, it reminds them of love that's patient and kind. Of love that doesn't have to shout to be heard. Perhaps the most beautiful part of their story is that it never pretended to be perfect. Their connection wasn't wrapped in fireworks or obsession, it was built on everyday moments. The way he fixed her shoes. The way she teased him about his habits. The quiet pauses between their sentences. That's where real affection hides, in the ordinary, where love feels like breathing. The sea remembers them because they belong to it, even if only for a while. It remembers the laughter they gave to the wind, the warmth they poured into the sand, the tears they left behind when the cameras stopped rolling. And maybe that's why whenever fans hear waves, they think of Gongjin, as if somewhere in that small seaside town, Chief Hong and Haijin are still walking side by side, still bickering gently, still in love. And if the sea could speak, it would say their story isn't over. It would say that some tides never stop returning to shore, they just take their time. Maybe one day, years from now, Kim Seon-ho and Shin Min-ta will find themselves standing near water again, not as characters, but as people who once shared something rare. He'll smile that same easy smile, she'll laugh that same gentle laugh. And for a moment, Gongjin will exist again, not on screen, but in the space between them. The sea will know. It always does. Because the ocean keeps its promises. It remembers every whisper, every look, every heartbeat left in its care. And just like the tide, their story flows endlessly, sometimes visible, sometimes hidden, but always returning in the hearts of those who felt it once. In every wave that breaks, in every sunset that paints the horizon gold, in every quiet moment when love feels simple and kind, that's where their memory lives. It's not a love story that ended. It's one that learned how to live forever, carried by the rhythm of the sea that refuses to forget. Years drifted by like waves in slow motion, carrying seasons and memories with them. Gongjin, the little seaside town that once held their laughter, changed but never truly moved on. New boats replaced old ones. Children who once ran barefoot along the pier were now grown, waving to tourists who came searching for that famous bench where Chief Hong and Haijin once sat a day. The cafe by the shore still sold coffee that smelled faintly of salt and sunrise. Everything seemed new, yet haunted by a feeling that something precious had merely stepped away for a while. It was on one of those quiet mornings, when the sea was still half asleep and the light hadn't yet turned gold, that she came back. Shin Min-ta stood where the sand met the tide, her hair dancing in the breeze. She wasn't here for a shoot, not for nostalgia, but for silence. She had been away too long, and something in her heart had pulled her back to the rhythm she once called home. She walked the same narrow path that led to the harbor, her footsteps soft against the whispering wind. And then she saw him. Kim Seon-ho stood by the old fishing dock, camera in hand, lost in the morning mist. Time had changed him, a little older, perhaps calmer, but the warmth in his eyes was still the same, untouched by fame or distance. For a moment, the world hesitated. The sound of the waves paused. The gulls hung mid-flight. Chief Hong, she teased softly, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned, startled at first, then smiling in disbelief. Dentist. The years melted. Gongjin exhaled. The sea, in its eternal knowing, rolled gently toward them as if to bless the moment it had been waiting for. They didn't rush to speak. They simply stood there, two familiar strangers connected by a tide that had never receded. The ocean hummed between them, wrapping their silence in the comfort of memory. "I didn't think you'd come back," he said after a long pause. "I didn't think you'd still be here," she replied, smiling. "I never left," he answered quietly, as if the sea itself had kept him anchored. They walked along the shore where they once filmed countless scenes. Every corner carried a ghost of laughter, the bench, the market, the hill that overlooked the ocean. It was strange, almost sacred, how time had turned the place into a mirror of their past. At one point, they stopped by the pier, the same spot where their characters had once confessed love under the fading sun. The sky now mirrored that same color, the soft blush of memory. "You know," she began, "I always thought we left a part of ourselves here." He chuckled gently. "Maybe we did. Maybe Gongjin keeps it safe for us." A small silence followed, not awkward but heavy with understanding. She looked out at the sea, its endless rhythm, its infinite patience. "The ocean never forgets," she said. He nodded. "Neither do people." And then came the moment that didn't belong to any script, simple, human, wordless. She leaned into the wind, he stepped closer, instinctively, as though gravity had chosen him to steady her. Their eyes met, not as actors, not as characters, but as two people who had once shared something the world mistook for fiction. "I used to wonder if any of it was real," she said softly. "The laughter, the feeling, the peace." "It was," he said. "Every bit of it." The sea rose a little higher, brushing their feet, carrying away the space between them. It was as if the ocean itself had decided to reunite what it had once kept apart. When they finally parted, it wasn't with sadness. It was with gratitude, the kind that settles quietly in the heart, knowing something rare has come full circle. She looked back once before leaving, her eyes shimmering with both light and memory. He lifted his hand in a small wave, the sea moving behind him like a living heartbeat. And as she walked away, she could still hear it, the sound of the tide, the echo of his laughter, the whisper of a story that refused to end. The sea remembered them. It always